Okay. First of all, I have to apologize that my presentation is not in German, although I understand German rather well, but this is a very specific, let's say, material, so that's why I prefer to do it in English. First of all, the title is Current Developments Regarding the Reduction of Animal Numbers in the Netherlands. Now, the answer is there some development? Yes, there are some development. There's a lot of noise and a lot of accusations and a lot of committees. But so far, after 4 years, the result is practically zero, as you will see. But I will give an explanation on this conclusion. Okay, second sheet. Very shortly, my name is Johan Vollenbroek. I graduated a long time ago in chemistry with a minor in business administration. I worked with an international consulting company working all over the world. And thereafter, we started Mobilisation for the Environment. It was founded 27 years ago with the focus on biodiversity and climate change. Why Mobilisation for the Environment? Because we are thinking if all the money that would be spent on warfare and all this kind of activities, if that would be devoted to combat climate change and improve biodiversity, then it could be solved in a few years. And we thought we give ourselves 25 years and then we quit and we stop our organization. But unfortunately, we are not finished yet, as you will see. So we will continue, hopefully not for another 25 years, but at least for the number of years. Now, our focus is on biodiversity and climate change because we consider that 27 years ago already as the most pressing issues. Originally, we started with 2 persons. Now we are working with a team of 8 mostly juridical experts. And working on many court cases, as you will see. We have also got various awards for our work, not from the government and also not from the right-wing parties in the Netherlands. They are not very fond of us, but there are some parties which do like the work, what we are doing. Okay, next sheet. Our strategy. First of all, we prefer to talk to decision makers because of course we have to explain what we are doing, and we ask them to take measures to reduce especially biodiversity degradation in the Netherlands. But talking to decision makers is our conclusion. Doesn't make doesn't give the results that you would expect. Normally it gives zero results. So therefore, we started already quite early hundreds of court cases to stop further breakdown of natural areas. At this moment, I checked it yesterday. I think we have around 300 court cases running at the moment at the same time in the Netherlands with different courts and also with the highest court, the Raad van State. We focus especially on protection of nature, Natura 2000 areas. Natura 2000, that's also the English word for it. And of course, you are familiar with Natura 2000 areas. We have around 162 Natura 2000 areas in the Netherlands. I think in Germany you have more than 1,000 Natura 2000 areas. But of course, Germany is a bigger country than our small country. We focus mainly on we base our court cases mainly on the Habitat Directive and the Birds Directive. And why is that? Because as juridical experts and among you know that once a European directive has not been let's say transposed into national legislation, then you can base your court cases directly on the European directive, and that's what we do with Habitat and Birds Directive, because the Habitat Directive, for instance, came into force in 1992, and still it has not been transposed correctly into Dutch legislation. These 2 directives have 2 issues in common. They say very clearly a further degradation of Natura 2000 areas is not allowed. So it does not really say a stringent order to improve the situation. Of course, you have to make plans, etc., etc. But the further degradation is not allowed. And that is the main basis for a massive number of court cases. Yes. Now, what are the target areas? We are not targeting only on the livestock cattle breeding. We are also targeting the industry, because the industry is also an important source of nitrogen. One of the results is that till the end of this year, we have a generic ammonia emission standard from 30 milligrams per cubic meter. And after a number of court cases and a lot of talks to the ministry agreed, the cabinet agreed to reduce the standard for industry from 30 to 5 milligrams per cubic meter. That should be, that's not only on paper, but so the permits must be adjusted in the coming years. And by 2028, that must have been implemented. So that's quite a result, at least for industry at this moment. And there are quite a number of industries which emit a lot of ammonia. One of them is, for instance, Yara. That's one of the biggest European fertilizer companies in Zeeland, in the province of Zeeland, emitting around 1,000 tons of ammonia a year into the environment. So they have to reduce by more than 80%. Aviation as well. When we had the verdict from the European court in 2018, and then in 2019 the ruling of the Dutch Raad van State, we discovered that our main airports, Schiphol, Rotterdam, Eindhoven, Maastricht, Eelde, and Lelystad, you see too many airports for such a small country. None of these airports has a permit for it. So all these airports are illegal. So what we did in 2019, we asked the government to shut down all these airports, including Schiphol. Of course, they did not close the airports immediately, but they admitted to MOB that yes, indeed, they need an environmental permit, and now they are still working on it. The first permit has just been published for Schiphol, but we are going to court for this permit, because it's based on 500,000 flights a year, and we think they only have historical rights for half of them. So that there's a good chance that we will be able to trim the Schiphol airport in a number of flights. Rotterdam airport, in our opinion, has to stop completely, has to be shut down, because when you're living in Rotterdam, in our opinion, if you want to fly, you can go to Schiphol and to Eindhoven. Both cities are very close, and Rotterdam does not have any historical rights. So there is a good chance that Rotterdam airport will have to close down. The same holds for Maastricht and Eelde. Lelystad, there was a proposal. The idea some 3 years ago to shift part of the passengers from Schiphol, the flights from Schiphol to Lelystad. So Lelystad would become a second a major airport, but we blocked this also with legal procedures. And we have an elections coming week, and I've noticed with pleasure that most of the parties, which let's say there's a majority now that Lelystad will not open for holiday flights. Unfortunately, yeah, about 300 million euro has been invested in this airport. I think it's at the moment already 350 million euros, but okay, it's pity of the money, but it's at the moment 98% sure that Lelystad will never open. We also have court cases against wood burning, biomass. And we were quite successful in prevention of the construction of major plants. For instance, Sabich recently, a few months ago, Vattenfall also a few months ago, after sometimes 3 or 4 years of court cases against these permits. There's a lot of money involved, because the subsidy they would get, both of the two companies, it was almost 1 billion euro over the period of 10 years for wood burning, which we consider as absurd. That's why we are fighting against wood burning. But in terms of nature degradation, of course, livestock and cattle breeding are crucial. Next one. Then the question, of course, comes up: what is required to counteract climate and biodiversity degradation? There's a typing error over there. You see that it should be degradation. In fact, we only have to take into consideration two activities, as Georges Monbiot summarizes it very nicely. We must leave fossil fuels underground, coal, oil, and gas. That's of course crucial. Stop the subsidies for fossil fuels completely. So there's a huge fight in the Netherlands to stop these fossil fuels subsidies. And then also, of course, secondly, a reduction in consumption of animal protein. We call it a protein transition. And this means that worldwide, we would need a reduction of cattle breeding with 75%. If we do not do so, then we will not succeed to counteract climate change. There are some very relevant readings from Georges Monbiot. First of all, I would address his book. That's Regenesis is his book. It's on purpose. It's called Regenesis. It's an excellent description of the problems, but also of the solutions. It's a scientific book, so I really can recommend it. Unfortunately, so far it was only in English, but perhaps it's maybe translated also in German. I don't know. And of course, you can look also on our website, but of course that one is in Dutch, but you can also get it translated. Yes, next one. Yes, this sheet, please look carefully at this sheet, because that's in fact the crux. That is in one picture you can show what is the problem, especially related to the breakdown of our ecosystems and the biodiversity. On the vertical axis, you see in millions tons of masses. So that's the amount of the total of wild animals, domesticated animals, and humans. So that's on the vertical axis. That goes from 0 to 1,400 tons. So this is excluding chicken and goose and other animals, but only mammals. And of course, we human beings are also mammals. So that's the sum of it, which is exposed on the vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, you see the time frame. So 10,000 before Christ, there were mainly only wild animals. And why is this 10,000? Because there was an enormous change around that time, that people changed from wandering around, and they had fixed habitats, places to live. Now in 1900, you can see we lost already most of our wild animals worldwide. So the big extinction started already in the period 10,000 before Christ till 1900. And you see the human population increased tremendously, and also the domesticated animals increased substantially. In 1950, you see the dark blue domestic animals growing further. Also, of course, the human population. 2000, and there you see that in fact the number of domesticated animals is exploding over there. And if we do not take any measures, then in 2050 the number of wild animals will almost have disappeared, and then the domesticated animals are let's say the number is that's the most part of what is living on Earth, with enormous risks, as we will see later. So this is in fact the main problem. It also shows that we often get the question: should not you do something about overpopulation with people? You see that the overpopulation with domesticated animals is in fact the major problem, and there we also can find the solution. Harari, that's an Israeli historian. He wrote an excellent book about this development. Okay, next one. And of course, climate change. That's I think this picture is self-explanatory. It starts 800,000 years ago. It's till recently. You see, that's 1950. Yeah, at the end, you see some going up and going down. But at the moment, it's exploding. It's even at the moment at 425. So it's even above this current level. Next one. Biodiversity loss in the Netherlands, it's 85% compared to 100 years ago. So the biodiversity loss is still going on. Yes, next one. What are the main problems in the now? We are coming to nitrogen and ammonia. The major problems with ammonia and nitrogen oxide is, first of all, it's bad for human health. People do not realize it, but we have a lot of deaths as a result of secondary aerosols. The damage estimated due to this ammonia and NOx is estimated for the Netherlands is several billions of euros a year. And of course, it gives acidification and eutrophication of soils. A decrease in soil life and functioning of the soils, a decrease in plant species richness, and then insect decline, and then also birds decline. I also read, I think it's about 1 year ago, I read a report from German scientists that also in Germany the insects declined with about 75% in the last 2 to 3 decades. So also in Germany, this process is unfortunately still proceeding. Yeah, next one. Now, if you look at the Netherlands, the changes in ammonia, in nitrogen emissions in the Netherlands, and nitrogen is the sum of ammonia and NOx. You see in this picture that in fact, the peak was around 1985, 1990. Since then, it reduced to, if you look at the right side of this column, to about 30 kilograms nitrogen per hectare per year. And if we want to become sustainable in the Netherlands, we should go down to about 10, 12 kilograms nitrogen per hectare per year. That's the target we should aim at, and then. Our Natura 2000 areas are more or less safe for damage due to nitrogen. Next one. This is a picture with the total accumulated acid in our soils from the years 1990 to 2016. So you can see that the total amount of acid which is accumulated in soil is still increasing. I suppose for Germany it's more or less the same, perhaps less pronounced as this one, but more or less similar. Okay, next one. Yes, that's also an interesting sheet. The average nitrogen emission per country. Here you see that as the Netherlands, it's a long time ago that we were a football champion, but you see we are a champion in European Union in ammonia and nitrogen emission per country. So this is expressed total of nitrogen per hectare per year. You see it's around a little bit more than 50 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year. Then Belgium is following, mainly from Flanders, and then Germany is third here, and then you see also the other countries. So also Germany is a major emitter of nitrogen, and that's the total, of course, of traffic and industry and livestock. But the reason that we are so high in this graphic is, of course, that Netherlands has the most most dense country in terms of animals per hectare, and that's in fact the main reason that we are here on top. Okay, next one. If you look at if you look at the amount of this is in Dutch. If you see this column, it starts with beans, and then that's the emission of nitrogen per kilo of CO2, I should say, yeah, per kilogram product as you buy it in the supermarket. And CO2 and nitrogen are to some extent parallel, but you see then it comes the vegan burger, then the insects are coming, then the tofu, and you see what the bottom of it is, especially cheese and hamburgers and steaks. This is a disaster for climate and also for biodiversity degradation. Next one. Sources of nitrogen in the Netherlands, 46% is coming from agriculture. That's also taking into account what is coming from abroad. But if you look only at the Dutch sources, then agriculture is 76%. The last line is agriculture for ammonia emissions. Agriculture is let's say 90% of ammonia emissions is coming from agriculture. That's why we are pushing so hard on agriculture. Next one. I already told so. The Netherlands is overpopulated with cattle. We have the highest livestock density in the world. That leads to damage to population health and our natural environment. Is also driving force behind climate change. And we have also one of the most polluted, dirtiest air in the Netherlands. Recently, we had a warning that in parts of the Netherlands, the air quality is not good for raising children. Children have the right for clean air when they grow up. And really, the Netherlands is in a danger zone over there. Also, we have also the dirtiest surface water quality in Europe. That's very relevant for the Water Framework Directive. We have the stand for Water Framework Directive. And we have started also a number of court cases for this Water Framework Directive, because that's after the Habitat and Birds Directive, we have the Water Framework Directive, and that's coming into force in 2027. So that will be another line of attack that we will follow in the coming years. And besides this, besides the enormous livestock in the Netherlands, we have 2.5 million ghost hectares, as we call it, elsewhere in the world, because we as the Netherlands cannot feed all this cattle, so we import a lot of food from South America, mostly from South America, and for that that needs about 2.5 million hectares. Okay, next one. What has happened since 2015? Now, the so-called PAS, that was the nitrogen law, was initiated based on hypothetical credits. It was a program on credit. November 2018, there was a clear European court ruling that this whole program was not appropriate. But the important thing is that all member states need to comply. And if you read the verdict of the European Court, then because that's about the interpretation of the Habitat and Birds Directive, and the European Court ruled that this Habitat Directive should be interpreted very strictly. And also in May 2019, we got a ruling of the Council of State, the Raad van State, and as of then, the Netherlands is more or less locked down, and it still is more or less in a lockdown. Next one. What does this mean? First of all, intensive cattle farming cannot expand anymore, of course. That's an important result. But also industry has a lot of problems, because no new industries can be permitted at the moment. And that's not only a problem in the Netherlands, because we also are now involved in a court cases against a major project in Antwerp. because also from this project quite some nitrogen emissions would come and would land on Dutch Natura 2000 areas. So we also started with other organizations a court case against this initiative. It's about a 4 billion euro investment, so not million, a 4 billion euro investment. So if this works out properly, as we think it will work out finally at this court, then this is a major problem for the industry in Flanders. But also in the Netherlands, we have quite some examples of industries which cannot expand, or new industries cannot come in because of this lockdown with nitrogen. Also, airports have problems without an environmental permit. I already mentioned it before. And in Belgium, there are a lot of court rulings already also even for gas-fired power plants, because also from there NOx is coming from. And judges do not allow this anymore. So there is also quite some panic in Belgium at the moment in industrial circles. I don't know about Germany. In Germany, it's still quite, let's say, silent, I would say. I heard in Germany you have this Bagatellwert, as you call it, and that's quite strange, because this principle of using this Bagatellwert, it's clearly conflicting with the Court of Auditors verdict of 2018. Next one. Now, we had an advisory board some 2 years ago, and then there was an advisory board to the Dutch government, and they did a recommendation of 50% reduction in 10 years across all sources: agriculture sector, industry, traffic, aviation, coalition agreement. Okay, excellent. Next one. But how to tackle the agriculture as 90% of the ammonia induction? We advocated from the beginning, already from 4 years ago, please, government, take an integrated approach. Do not look only at biodiversity. Look at the same time also at climate change, because agriculture is a major source of CO2, methane, and also N2O. That's also an important gas in relation to climate change. And of course, biodiversity. Look also at the issue of healthy food, because at the moment in the Netherlands, people are eating too much animal protein. I'll come back to this at the end. But even to such an extent that it is considered unhealthy. And I think in Germany it's more or less the same. We also ask the government, look also at animal welfare, because all these aspects should be taken into an integrated approach, because otherwise you address the farmers now with the problems on biodiversity, and 2 years later you come with climate considerations. And what is very important also, we had economic assessments implemented. Intensive farming makes a loss if you account for all the externalized costs. I suppose you are familiar with the term external costs, but these are in fact the costs which are not included in the price that you pay for in the shops. But that is, these are realistic costs, but they are being paid by the population as a whole, mostly taxpayers. Next one. Damages due to livestock farming. It's very important to have these economic assessments implemented, because this year we had a lot of publication about the damage due to livestock farming, and in the Netherlands it is estimated now at 9 billion every year. So that has been published in the FD's, it's Financieel Dagblad, that's the Dutch Financial Times, and the NRC of July. So these are really very prominent newspapers in the Netherlands. They publish these articles based on calculation from our economists. If you look at the country as a whole, I call it the Netherlands BV. If you look as a whole, then livestock farming in the Netherlands, if you include the external costs, it costs us money. So it does not bring money, it costs us money. And then based on this, very recently, the Agriculture University of Wageningen, they also published a study that was only 2 weeks ago, so that's very recent. If we go in the Netherlands from a protein transition from 60-40, so that means 60% from animal protein and 40% plant protein, if you change that to 40-60, so 40 animal protein and 60 plant protein, that would yield a result of 10 billion euro a year. So that's what our Agriculture University recently published. So that's a lot of money. Next one. Yes, next one. Yeah. So that means also globally, I mean, these are estimates for the Netherlands, but we think that the global livestock must go down in coming years. To stop further climate change and give space for more nature will also solve nitrogen problems, and it will also reduce the concerns about zoonosis, because Q fever, corona, bird flu, etc. These are also very relevant threats. If you would calculate how much corona has cost the world, I haven't never seen an total estimate of it, but that is completely insane how much money that has cost. And if you get a bird flu epidemic among human beings, then I think we are really in bigger problems. The next one. So all these estimates, economic estimates, exclude the potential cost of zoonosis. Now, what is our proposed change in Dutch agriculture? 75% reduction in livestock. There is a budget now for about 25 billion euro to buy out farmers and to assist farmers to become more sustainable. So that's the transition towards small-scale, extensive, ground-based cattle farming. And at the same time, it's important to put taxes on animal products, meat, milk, butter, cheese, eggs, etc., etc. And of course, the farmers should have a proper income, so the income for farmers should increase compared to most of them as their present incomes. Next one. It should be integrated with climate. I've said it before. Also, the scientists from Leiden University recently published about it, and they also concluded that in the West, the rich West, needs to decrease meat consumption with 75%. If you look in India, they are already quite ahead of us, because the meat consumption is there. Much lower, but especially in the West, also in the United States, the meat consumption must decrease by 75%. Only then this measure will give us a possibility to turn the tide for climate change. And you should take into account that the West has enormous historical CO2 debt, because that's in fact the basis of our present economy. Next one. Is it expensive? We don't. Of course, it costs money. But if you calculate external costs, which I mentioned before, then this is from an economic point of view, it's a profitable scenario. And for economists, if you would really, if our government would listen to economists, then they would go for this scenario. So it's a joint approach on climate, biodiversity, and healthy food. So that's really a win-win situation. However, citizens will lose monetary wealth, because citizens will have to pay more for their food. At the moment, at the average in Holland, we pay about 10% of our income to food. And so 50 years ago, that was 50%. Now it's 10%. It may go up to 12, 13%. Even not more than 12, 13% if you go for the approach that we propose. The only problem is politicians do not dare to communicate this inconvenient truth. Next one. What did the government do in the past 4 years? First of all, a lot of committees, lots of documents, so more than 70 committees, practically no emission reduction, only voluntary stops, and that's crucial, of farms, and that does not provide sufficient reduction. So MOB started legal cases to revoke licenses of major polluters. Most of them are cattle breeding. Well, I think we have now around 300 cases running at this moment, because if the government does not have the guts to do so, then we decided to take the initiative here. Next one. So what is needed? We need a government with a coherent, future-proof vision, and I hope that this will change after Thursday, because then we have national elections, and we need politicians with guts, as we say it, because a lot of politicians in the Netherlands, they are afraid of angry farmers. And also we should stop with paying polluters, because that is mainly what we are still doing in the Netherlands. And as long as we continue paying polluters, then this whole system doesn't work. Next sheet. Conclusions. Livestock reduction will only be achieved if combined with protein transition. People in the West, in Germany, in Holland, in Denmark, in Belgium, must reduce their animal protein consumption. There should be a change from, I sometimes read 2/3 animal-based protein in West Europe as an average, to 1 to 3 based on so that's 1/3 animal-based and 2/3 plant-based protein. That's economically very attractive because of the reduction of external costs. So for climate, we need an energy transition, and for biodiversity and climate, we need a protein transition. And for that, a reduction of livestock with 75% is required. Otherwise, we will not achieve the results that we need for saving our environment. Next one. So what we are doing in the Netherlands, we are putting pressure on the system from different angles. We started court cases, of course, based on the Habitat and Birds Directive in relation to Natura 2000 area, nitrogen deposition. But also very important is, and that also holds, of course, for Germany, that you have to assess the costs and benefits of a protein and agriculture transition, including the external cost, because that's of course a very good, also scientific, but also an economic argument to change. Because if you want to go through this protein and nitrogen transition, of course, then you have to change the habits for people, especially in terms of eating, and it's also a cultural issue. But if you emphasize the economic advantages of it, then you have an excellent argument, also a scientific argument. Next one. And of course, we have to communicate the results of this economic assessment to decision makers and the public. The public, and don't forget the public, it's very important. The more people understand why this is important, the bigger chance is that you achieve this 75% reduction and change to 2/3 plant-based nutrition. This plan must ensure, of course, very important, adequate income for farmers based on the above shit, and that's very well possible. And of course, you have to visualize the results of the above plan for maximum dissemination. We just finalized an animation movie about this dissemination. Next one. So the question is, I think that's the one but last sheet I have. Is it possible to have a good life for the generations to come? Because in fact, that's the main question. Will we be able to halt climate change? That's only possible with a drastic change in nutrition. Protein nutrition must shift. I mentioned it before. Cattle stock reduce, and if not, that's the last line. If we do not achieve this, then our generation will continue stealing our children's future. Next one. Questions? Any questions?
Thank you very much, Johan.